The 2nd of September, this will be the September Buckley City Council study session. We have a quorum. We're good. Is anybody online?
Councilmember Anderson
Perfect.
and Treba.
Perfect. Okay, the first item we have, it looks like we're going to go in order because we have a gentleman here who is part of this. So this will be the discussion on the proposed pump track donation.
Thank you, Council. The last time this came before you was July 1st. Since then, no big change to the agreement. Our city attorney just did one final review. To remind you all of the proposal, Mr. Johansson is proposing to donate a pump track facility that will be located roughly between the land where the Dock Tape Pavilion currently stands and the Veterans Memorial. Per the contract terms, the city council must grant written approval of the final design. So you have concepts included in your packet, but not a final design. So you would have an additional chance to review the design before it would be a final approved. What this does, this agreement is reserves the land for a period of 2 years from the date that it's executed, that we would be willing to review and approve said pump track to be located at in that area. So 2 years from execution of the agreement and then 1 year from approval of all required permit applications. Mr. Johansson's been here twice before. General support from council, but before we put it on the agenda next week, we wanted to have another opportunity for everyone to weigh in and give input. So it wasn't seeming like it came out of nowhere since it's been a couple of months since we looked it over.
Questions from council, comments? I know Councilmember Burgess.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily opposed to a pump track, but I still am opposed to the location that is kind of designated as where it's going to go. One, like I stated before, it is similar to the skate park, not the same, I understand that, but it is similar. And two, I worry that in the location that it's scheduled to go, it would be more likely there's going to be vandalism, graffiti at the Veterans Memorial, and then the new Dock Tape Pavilion. So those are my issues with it.
Where would you suggest that? Do you have a suggestion of a better place for it to be?
I stated last time that we spoke about this that I like the Miller Park area or across the street at Elk Heights.
Councilmember Sonnet.
The old Oak Heights Park, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Green.
I understand where you're coming from, but I like the location. I think that because it's similar to the skate park, different thing, but kind of similar idea. I think it's cool because it's like in proximity to the youth center, got the skate park there, got your basketball courts. It's just kind of consolidating a lot of activities in one central area. The reasons I wouldn't really consider Miller Park and the Elk Heights Park is just, I think this thing, like, especially we talked about potentially holding like competitions and things like that, that could draw a lot of traffic down those residential specific areas. But no, I support this location.
Yeah, I think it's really going to add something to the landscape of the town when you're coming in on 410. Families, people, individuals are going to see this facility on the side of the road, and it's going to cause them to want to pull over and visit Buckley for that very reason. Aside from pickleball courts, basketball courts, skate park, this is a whole nother demographic of people that are going to be coming to town for this specific use. And so if it's tucked away on one of these other locations, it's just not going to get the visibility that it has the potential of, of helping bringing these people into town, I think. And it's going to be really pretty too.
I appreciate Councilmember Bergson's concerns. I am not aware of any graffiti around the current skate park. I may be wrong. Chief Alfano's not here. I don't don't want to assign a group of people who like to ride mountain bikes or different types of bikes to be the first person who would be ticked off in this community if somebody damages the Veterans Park would be me. I don't see it. I don't see that there. I don't see we have a problem along that corridor. And you mentioned events and competitions. That means people coming for an extended period of time. That means they have to eat. They have to spend money here and revitalize and continue. I mean, we took so many steps forward and then a accident happens on the bridge and here we are temporarily stuck. And that'll fix itself, but constantly got to have people coming. And the other point I would make is this is not something that the city decided that they wanted to do. We have a person that is being benevolent and with an interest in this type of activity, and our investment will be the annual upkeep, maintenance, whatever that means, blowing it off with a air blower or whatever it's going to take. And it's not like we're not having to put it all in here, all that money in. Mayor.
Yeah. Here, fancy mic here. Yeah, I think that, I know I've been to Quincy and other locations where it's not right out in front. You're down a side street. Oh, there is something here. And I think with it, the visibility, should it go there? Same thing for all the traffic that goes to Crystal in the winter. People are gonna be like, oh, I didn't know that was there. And same with the skate park and so on and so forth. People will drive through Buckley and go, oh, there is quite a bit of things to do here, whatnot. So that's my cent and a half.
Councilmember Bitter.
My only question is the upkeep with the grass. How hard is that going to be to keep it mowed in between all these areas? Has our city said anything about that? If it's going to be an issue?
It would need to be mowed with a push mower, but our Parks Department is not concerned with upkeep. They said it would be relatively low maintenance. Right now, we use a riding lawn mower as well as contract. And then we would be push mowing in the grassy areas, but Mr. Johansson has also discussed some different types of landscaping in some of the areas to minimize regular upkeep. So that would be something that council would definitely want to evaluate as part of the final design. And then beyond that, like leaf blowing off the track periodically, but we don't expect that it would significantly increase the amount of maintenance that's currently required for that area.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments from council? And we don't make decisions at study sessions, but as you would have read in your packet, the email that came in the packet, this is going to come before us next week. So is there a general bobblehead consensus that is where we want to go?
Just if she had her hand up or anything.
No, she's allowed to, yeah. No.
Councilmember Bender.
I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I can see the good of having it, but then I'm kind of like, where it's at, I don't want to slow up the traffic that goes through there. I don't know. I don't see a lot of bad things, but I'm just like 50-50 on it.
Is there something else you would like me to build there instead?
No,
Okay.
okay, I'll think about it.
And I'll say this too, and I am been a long time since I've ridden a BMX bike, or I don't know exactly what all the other stuff that goes in there. I get it, but it also is going to give kids something else to do besides having idle time on their hands, sitting in front of a screen mean, not every kid is an athlete that plays with a ball. They do other things, you know, people ski here, but if it's something else for these kids to do, to keep them out of trouble, and I guess that would keep them healthy too by getting some exercise. I mean, what's wrong with that? And I haven't heard of Antifa coming and taking over a pump track anywhere, so I'm not worried about that. Councilmember Song.
Well, my other thought with it too is that if it's in that location, at least the police don't have to go to another location that,
Good point.
I mean, they're, you know, if they hit the skate park, they can hit that and all. I mean, eventually if we do Miller Park, we'll have to go there eventually, but right now kind of being in the same area benefits it at least a little bit like that.
Yep. And at the parking lot we have there, it's being used. And when the bathrooms ever gone in,
Yeah, bathrooms are
Bathrooms
operational.
are-
They're good.
but and then all that parking along river that's not being used, it was a perfect spot. They put in all that parking when they redid river, and it's hardly ever used, and don't have to construct it.
One quick thing too, just for thought, that not specifically tied to this, but Kenny, when you mentioned the police aspect, I know we talked years ago about overhead lighting, and I believe over in Natchez they have, and we talked about it here over the years on the council about having motion activated lights so that the lights aren't on all the time, but if somebody runs or bikes down the trail, the lights come on, and it's really easy. I remember, I think Jim was still the chief, talked about, I mean, what better way to know there's somebody traveling down the trail? It's good for them. They can see where they're going, and it's not an energy consumption. Obviously, that's a huge capital project, but we could do a section of that from the Veterans Memorial all the way down to the library or wherever. Anyway, just food for thought. They even have they have them hooked to the water system and they automatically water the baskets. They've got a really fancy setup. So just something for lighting. I know lighting's something we talked about for this too, at whatever juncture.
Anything else on this? Councilmember Anderson have anything?
No, I like the location and I'm excited.
All right, so it'll come to us next week, next Tuesday. Thank you, Mr. Johansson.
Yep, you bet. Thank you.
Yeah. Next item, and there is quite a lot of this, is going to be admin policies and procedures that have been being worked out at the administration level.
Yes, and we have Clerk Zumick online to give us an overview.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. So yes, included in your packet tonight is some draft policies. Most of them are the same as our current policies. However, we decided to update the format of all of our policies to make them easier to edit individually rather than as a whole manual at a time. You will see on the table of contents, there are some new policies included. Most of those came about due to either grants that we've gotten that have asked for copies of certain policies that we didn't necessarily have. So we thought this was a good time to get those into our policies. And then we've also updated a few of them. Most of them are just very minor updates. This new format allows us, like I said, to edit policies, add policies much easier than our previous whole manual, where it required technically an edit of the manual rather than an individual policy at a time. I'm not expecting, if you guys have reviewed them and you have any questions on any of the specific ones, I'd be happy to answer those tonight. I planned on giving you guys, a few weeks or so to actually review those. Email me, call me if you have any questions. And we would bring this forward at a future date for either another study session, if that's your pleasure, or to a council meeting for a repeal of our current and a replacement with this.
Questions, comments for the city clerk or the city administrator on these, Councilmember Burson?
We're gonna go through these individual, not each line, but as far as the subjects.
We can. Triva, what would your preference be?
If you have a lot of comments, I would love it if you could email them to me. That would be great. Or I'd be happy to set up a time to meet with you to go over all of those.
Okay,
Because as I said, the majority of these are what we already currently have in place. There are not a lot of them are changing or new.
okay,
On the table of contents on your second page here. On the right-hand column, it'll tell you if it's a new policy, there's like 7 or 8 of those and 3 that are updated and everything else remains the same. So it's not a holdup.
right. There's just a couple, different things that I'm wondering if we can put in there or change, a spelling error or, something like that. So. And then, I do have some questions, so I'll go ahead and I will email you, Triva.
Okay, yeah. And
That
if there's
works.
anything specific you would like answered tonight, I'm happy to try and do that also.
Okay.
Councilmember Green.
As far as the updated policies here, is there anything that we should be aware of that's like a significant update, or is it mostly just minor updates and tweaks that we should just be looking at?
Most of them are very minor. Some of them to align with collective bargaining agreements where the two did not align. So yeah, that's the main updates that you'll see and ones that were updated.
Okay, thank you.
Can we do it in red, like if anything changes in read out or?
Right, changes.
Draws your attention to anything that
And the ones that are updated, I'd be happy to do that.
language changes, so.
I did that with mine, so, yeah.
And looking at this, the majority of things that would need council approval would have to do with anything financial.
Compensation
And
related.
compensation, anything to do with a financial component. And a lot of these in 6,
Yeah, we've got-
chapter 6 are still under review.
Yeah.
That would be stuff that we would definitely have to be involved with. Councilmember Asano.
Was the work from home policy originally, I seen it updated, I thought in there, I was trying to find it real quick because I was reading it online, but. Is that one been updated?
It's been updated as a telework policy in there, because the original one we had was from COVID.
Mhm.
And so now it's just more generalized instead of just like pandemic related.
Is that under 2.4 flexible work scheduling program?
Yes.
Yeah, so that one shows it's been up. There's changes to what was in the current handbook.
So is that one that council has input on, or no, is it only the financial?
No, you would have, right now you have input on everything because the entire current handbook has been adopted by council. And so, but typical practice, council only has to review compensation related policies. Otherwise, the mayor and administrator can review an update, for example, appointment status or anti-harassment, those types of policies. But council absolutely has input on any and everything right now.
Yeah, I guess I'm with Denise, there's a few of them, if we're gonna talk either tonight
Mhm.
or another meeting. Where it's open to the public, right?
Mhm.
So is the plan you've got this stack here. You've got your what do you call it? Index that shows everything. If you had questions or input, I think what I heard the clerk say is to email her, or she could set up a time one-on-one.
But then does that become public record? So we're being, out in the open.
Yeah, or we could do it in an additional study session or tonight. If you have specific questions right now, we can go through them right now. Or we can have it collectively at a future study session or have a committee meeting for admin finance that we publicly advertise and have just a focused session separate and apart from our regular council meetings where we review just this topic. Lots of ways that we could choose to handle
I
it.
think we did that, and what was left at that last admin, finance, public safety was to review and email Treva.
Mhm,
And now it's at a full council study session.
mhm.
So there's 4 additional folks that have not seen these things, like Councilmember Burbank, Councilmember Bergerson, and myself have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councilmember Green.
I think if time permits, an additional study session would be good. I mean, that way, if we're emailing Triva, we could bring our concerns to the rest of the council and talk through it and just be more transparent.
Yep, there's no clock related to
Okay.
this, so we're not up against a certain time frame. In order to get it approved, you can take as much time as you would like.
Cool.
So we're gonna chew on this, we're gonna look into this. You've got this. Second page is your guide. You can read all of it. A lot of it's not changing. Some of it is, and some of it's new.
Mhm.
Anything else on this? Councilmember Anderson, anything?
No, future study session sounds good.
Okay, the next item on your agenda is developmental codes updates, and we have Mr. Farnsworth here that can walk us through this.
Yeah, you can sit over here too if you like, it's fine, whatever's convenient, that's too close.
I'm just trying to figure out how to share the presentation.
Oh, you can join our Zoom and can stop sharing that laptop.
Easiest thing, yeah.
Yeah. So here's our Zoom information. Right, right there. And then I'll make you a panelist.
Sorry, I'm so late, everyone. I had horrible.
Traffic's never been better around here.
You can see downtown Kent, so,
Wonderful.
Yeah, here comes.
I guess it's been Guinness. It's about beautiful. It shows you what the problem is. Mhm. I'm seeing the we call those billboard wars. Yeah. It's funny as heck.
Okay, you should be able to.
Pop that.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Get a little easier, just not staring at the wall.
Introduce yourself to you.
And this is Sarah Lukens. She's with Framework Consulting. She.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
who worked on our comprehensive plan and is now working on the implementation of our comprehensive plan, which is the update of the development regulations. So you might remember her from 2 years ago and last year. They've been with us for quite a while working through our codes.
Yes, thank you so much, Courtney. Let's see, we can get everything, and there is a lot of information in your packet, so thank you for your diligence and for doing all that. The first thing that we were gonna go over is kind of some old business, which is looking or really getting your final review on the ADU code and the step housing requirements from the state. So I wanted to go through those first to make sure that there aren't any additional changes that you would like seen reflected. Obviously, we have relatively little flexibility given state mandates, but wanted to put that in front of you one more time before we do a final recommendation. So that's really just an opportunity for you all to have a discussion about that
So the-
particular
Yeah,
part.
ADU, so if we look at our, well, actually, no, it's on the staff report. ADU draft code,
Yes.
and we, as the gentlelady mentioned, that the legislature has mandated municipalities comply with their edict regarding ADUs. So that's the first prong on here, so questions or comments on the ADUs?
And this was reviewed by council earlier
this
this
was
year, but
reviewed
it
by
has been
council.
several months. I'm not aware of any changes that have happened since the council's last review.
No.
Significant changes were changes to square footage. There used to be a requirement that a property owner had to occupy one of the 2 dwelling units. That no longer applies. The number of ADUs on a property has changed. We spent some time discussing the requirement of whether or not utility hookups would be required for each unit or for the property. Those sorts of things are what council's already reviewed and worked through and are demonstrated here.
Yeah, I think the only thing, and this will come up when we start looking through the R6000 zone, is that the planning commission has recommended that your minimum size for your ADUs is 1250 as opposed to what's mandated by the state is 1,000 square feet for individual ADU units.
Which gets pretty constrictive on a small lot like that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would the ADU be subject to the same setbacks on an R6000 lot?
The ADUs are subject to the same setbacks with the exception, and actually this is one change in this this most recent draft that I just gave you. There's a state requirement that on alley loaded lots that there is a 0 lot line setback on the back of the lot for your residential.
Alley facing.
Sorry, yeah, on the alley facing. So you can't have your I believe it's a 15-foot setback on that on those units.
Just out of curiosity, Chris, do you guys have any concerns with any of this? I mean, I know there are.
Zero lot line.
Yeah.
That's a state mandate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
the
but
state
we don't
requirement.
have a choice.
That's what it is.
Might have to make the alleys bigger.
Yeah, or straight.
Yeah.
Well, outside my neighborhood, my great grandma's house was at 391 Edith Street. And the garage, well, the house is still there. Rebuilt because it burned down, but the original garage is still there with a 0 lot line at the alley.
Like our once ladies and loggers still is today. Whatever it is today, I should know what it is.
Any other questions on ADUs? Accessory dwelling units.
Oh,
Yeah.
so for the duplexes and triplexes, did you limit them to 2 instead of 3?
So, yeah, I mean, we can, well, maybe can we return to that with the
Yeah.
R6000 and then, yeah, we
Yeah.
can talk through what we've decided to do there or work through with planning commission. So just quickly, maybe we could turn to the step housing, which is which you reviewed, I think, actually back in April. I think was the last time that I came in front of you, but we didn't go to a formal recommendation at that point. So I just wanted to bring it back to you before we take that step. A step on step. So what this is primarily is dealing with affordable housing, which includes emergency housing and permanent supportive housing. And again, these are state requirements. Buckley has a pretty small affordable housing requirement relative to some other cities. But what it mostly deals with is changing or updating our definitions and allowing emergency housing and permanent supportive housing in zones that allow lodging. And so when we get into the prohibited use table, you'll also see that that is reflected there.
Questions, comments on
Questions, comments?
the step housing? You got a whole staple together
Kind of definitions,
definitions of everything.
Definitions, yeah.
updated definitions.
Some things have changed.
Same thing I'd ask Chris, if you had any heartburn with any of this, this is more your wheelhouse than ours, that stuff that we can massage, whether it's the 1250. Which I'm backing up a little bit, the 1250 to 1,000 or any of this stuff. I mean, I always love hearing from staff that they live in that world.
It's just a matter of the state compliance, and this is the route we have to go. When we submit our comp plan for certification, we receive a comment from the Department of Commerce specifically about the emergency housing. So they're very much paying attention to this particular issue. But in terms of some of the stuff in the ADUs, like the maximum square footage, we can kind of leave that open for debate. For now, I would say that we do need to get these code updates done, especially the ADU and the emergency housing code. By the end of the year.
The only other, I think, big thing that's in that particular part is a redefinition of family, which is also kind of, it's a little bit more up to interpretation, but basically the state is not allowing us to regulate the number of unrelated individuals that are can live in a dwelling unit. So those changes are also in there. And we can massage that a little bit more than maybe some of the others materials, but that's, yeah.
So if you look at 19.12.215, under the definition of family, State of Washington says people residing in group homes or adult family homes shall not be considered family. Oh, wait, shall not be. Okay, strike that. I thought they were gonna go down that way. Anything else, council, on this, on these definitions? Or step housing definitions for compliance with the Department of Commerce?
You said this is for where there's currently lodging zoning.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
this mostly falls.
Exactly, yeah, so permanent supportive housing is, we must allow permanent supportive housing in all zones that have lodging or where there's existing residential. So it's kind of almost a blanket. For emergency housing, it can only, or it can be confined to the zones where you have lodging.
And lodging would be a hotel motel.
Hotel motel, yeah, exactly.
Anything else from council on the step housing definitions? Councilmember Anderson, anything?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Like, we'll move along to existing and new use table.
That's right. So included in your packet is the Excel sheet that's your existing use table. So you can see on there, it's many pages long, it's pretty exhaustive. So in discussions with both staff and also with planning commission, we decided to do a bit of a reformat so that we would look at prohibited uses as opposed to all of the sort of myriad of permitted uses that you allow. These are a number of uses that are kind of allowed across the board, and there's just a level of granularity that maybe isn't 100% necessary. So the way this is set up is the beginning is a matrix that shows kind of blanket if a particular sort of overriding use like agricultural uses or lodging is allowed in that zone at all. And if and then under that it's more granularly by those different categories what is allowed. So I've included in this packet just your commercial uses so that we can kind of get the go ahead that this is the right approach for you all. And then we'll continue on to the residential uses. But as you look through this, you'll see there are key maps at the beginning of each of the different sections. So what you have here is commercial flex, and then which is kind of the whole 410 corridor, and then 2 overlay zones, one along 410 and then one along 112th. And the 410, there's a little bit of a definition at the beginning, but the 410 overlay zone is really intended to start to create more of a gateway to Buckley. And so it's the idea is to have more commercial uses at front of lot, more retail uses, rather than some of the more passive industrial uses that that are currently there. So obviously, self-storage is kind of a hot button topic. And so we've been trying to figure out the best way to kind of figure out how to have fewer of those uses, particularly directly in the corridor. And so what we've proposed in here is basically that you could include self-storage as a conditional use in 410, but prohibit it in the in the overlay zone along 410, which is just applying to the first 100 feet away from the right of way. So that's kind of what we are looking to do, but I would love to have all of your thoughts on kind of the pros and cons of that approach, and yeah, whether you think we're on the right track.
So the goal being, as it's written now, to have retail in the front.
Exactly.
Against the frontage, and still the self-storage could be kind of behind that.
Right, exactly. And then with a conditional use, you could have some other sort of ability to regulate the self-storage, but we've gotten quite a bit of feedback from people who own these businesses as well, that having it as a prohibited use is a serious challenge for their businesses. And so this is a little bit of a way of kind of having a little bit more flexibility.
Questions, comments from council on this topic? Councilmember Burgess?
I personally like the retail up front, just because we need as much retail as we can get. That brings our city money, so I like the retail up front idea.
In the past, we had discussed the potential of a moratorium, if you will, or a straight prohibition on all storage facilities. And so with this proposal, this proposal does not do that,
Right.
right? It only prohibits in that first 100 feet. So I think what you're looking for is really direction and consensus, if that is
Yeah.
what council is comfortable with, or if you want things to, if you want a wider setback, we have the flexibility to be able to set those parameters at this point. And really, we'll probably only update our zoning code once per year maximum, if not significantly less frequent than that. So with that, if you would like to see something different along the 410 corridor in terms of allowed uses, or again, that buffer to widen or be smaller, now's the time to discuss it.
Well, we don't need any more storage.
Well, that was my question. What other businesses does it benefit coming there besides the storage unit?
Well, there's boat storage, and we're getting into all
Got it.
kinds of things lately. I think, do we have a boat storage coming or in the works? Not just storage, so there's,
Right.
you know,
I was trying to see what the benefit of not just doing a lot of ban on them.
just to give flexibility to the self-storage unit because there's still tax revenue from, it's not what retail is. but-
And I think that there was concern from the storage unit owners that exist today that by banning them or prohibiting them, not necessarily banning, but prohibiting them in these zones where they're currently allowed, you're making all of those storage units non-conforming, legal non-conforming. We're not kicking them out, but it does set up additional requirements if they want to expand or make changes to their buildings.
Mhm.
So for those property owners like Western Self Storage that just sold for a large sum of money, it does concern, I'm sure, all of those property owners and business owners that if we were to prohibit that use, it would make them all legal non-conforming. So that had been discussed by council, the possibility of prohibiting it. Council certainly can choose to. I expect that you will have a large audience of people requesting that you don't from that business community and from those groups of people. Or you can widen the overlay. 100 seemed like a good amount. When you start to get to 150, 250, there's certain properties that it really isn't allowed because those properties aren't quite wide enough to allow for it. 150, 250, you're working halfway into 112th Street at that point. So it's kind of essentially a ban in those areas, but without calling it a prohibited use, but it would still create new and additional non-conforming uses where there currently are allowed permitted storage facilities.
Like Councilmember Burgess,
Can we just grandfather the current ones in and they can do, you know,
Mhm.
things like that on their own property, but not.
Western self-storage is a good example
Yeah.
because I don't know what the setback is from the highway to where they begin. But if they wanted to expand out to the highway,
Right.
they couldn't. They could, of course, they're grandfathered in as is, but if they wanted to come to the highway, I
But
think
if-
that's the concern, and it's a very valid
mean,
concern.
But
We
if,
could also say that all properties prior or that had premises prior to 2025
Mhm.
are continue to be conforming. That is a possibility.
Yeah, the concern would be if they
yeah.
wanted to make some type of a modification, just the administration of that becomes difficult unless your
Yeah.
code is very clear
Exactly.
as to what is and isn't allowed, how much are they able to expand? Can they create one, can they remodel interior, right? And where there's currently 3 storage units, create 6 if they do all interior remodeling. So those are questions that if we wanted to grandfather some in, we would want to make sure that our code was very clear. But yes, so making it prohibited now does not make it it makes them legal non-conforming. So we are saying that you are legally allowed to be there. And we could certainly draft code that would give them parameters if they wanted to make changes, but prevent any new.
You even have some of those parameter or some more flexibility for residential in non-conforming zones right now, like for if there's property destruction, et cetera, you can rebuild. So there are ways to build a little bit more flexibility into the non-conforming.
Councilmember Green, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think I can get on board with kind of that grandfathering concept and developing some code to protect the current business owners. I think when we talked about the moratorium, at least my understanding of the intent was that we didn't want to see a bunch more storage businesses coming in, but nothing necessarily wanted to hurt the existing ones. So I'd be on board to explore that a little further.
Mayor.
Yeah, I know one of the big drivers when we first started discussing going down this road was just call it the Interwest property, the scaffolding. That was a place we didn't want to see more storage units. So to try to, and not just there, but all up and down. I mean, the corridor starts right there at Monday Lost for us, but that was one of the big drivers was can we prohibit that so we don't have Buckley isn't just storage units, after storage units, so.
Well. So I came on council in 2018 and council at that time, within that year, the next one, put a moratorium on cannabis businesses. Capped it at 3 or 2 and capped the production at 3. I'm not aware of any other moratorium in my time here, any moratoriums that have gone in. And I agree with the fact that the existing storage place should be grandfathered in, and so they could do whatever on the property. But the prohibited use, I don't want to see any more of those out there. But then again, had constituents reaching out a couple weeks ago with the big concrete building that's on the north side of 410, thinking that it was not zoned for that. Well, it is zoned for that. That's exactly what it's zoned for.
Yeah, a good example is the newer storage unit that has the retail up front and they're set back, the storage
Yes.
units are behind. That's kind of what we were driving at, so now's the kind of the time to say, do we want to stay with that theme? Or do we want to give some flexibility to those already in the store? And storage unit business or what have you, I think.
Well, I mean, they're already here, so doesn't mean we need any more. We need some new things coming in. So it just doesn't, you drive down 410 and see storage. And then people just keep driving.
And like Western has expanded out, or I think they plan to expand out to 112th to Pipeline. They've done a bunch of dirt work out. They're gonna blow it out the back because they're permitted back there, but not out in front of the car wash there.
Yeah, that's for RV storage.
It's just.
Oh, it's just open storage, okay.
Which is fine, but we really gotta watch what's right there on the frontage.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we're just have people zooming through and just going, there's nothing here.
Other comments, questions on this topic of prohibited use? Overlay areas?
So what we're hearing is that you want us to draft code that
Yes.
does prohibit standalone storage, so it would not prohibit accessory uses that require storage. So if you had an industrial warehouse, for example, and you needed some storage component to that, that wouldn't be prohibited, but it would have to be an accessory use. But at the same time, draft language for the non-conforming use section that protects current business owners. And the concern with that from it's from an insurance perspective, if it was to be damaged, right? Can they rebuild? And are they able to continue their current business model or potentially expand within their existing footprint? That sound right? So we can work on drafting.
So
language.
what does that do though for those properties if they do decide to sell it and the new owner wants to keep it as storage? They're still able to do that?
Yes, it would have
Okay.
to. It would not be attached to ownership. It would be attached to the property
To the
itself.
property.
Okay.
All right, okay, so I will draft that and then.
Councilmember Anderson, anything?
And is that just around the Highway 410 corridor? Or is that also off of 112? And Hazelton?
You included.
So the commercial flex zone as is depicted here, and this is the zoning map itself is another thing that is subject for council's review, but as it's drafted right now, commercial flex, the future land use map, it extends from 112th Street to properties along Hinkleman Road. And then there are some residential properties that are not highlighted in red, and then everything off of 410. So would we want that to extend to all of those areas, or are you only wanting that on your Highway 410 frontage?
I would think all of it personally.
Yeah.
Okay.
For all of it.
112th is getting busy.
Okay.
And it's not really set up, four-way stops and everything else. All that traffic.
So no new standalone storage.
No new standalone storage. Got it. Okay.
If they wanna have a Thai restaurant. Yeah, let's go.
Reuse.
Roll up door.
Okay, great. Thank you all. And I guess if there's anything else that you saw as you were looking through that prohibited use table, any uses that you feel like shouldn't be there, feel like should be there, I would also love that feedback.
So what the planning commission has done is they took this table, which outlines a lot of different uses, and your revised code would repeal this, where each use is identified, the zones are identified, and you have Ps or blanks or conditional, which indicates conditional use, and it would be replaced with text similar to what's drafted here, where it says in this zone, these are the prohibited uses, and then these are the conditional uses, and the text would read that way rather than in this table format with pages and pages and pages of uses.
Yeah.
User-friendly.
For sure.
While you're looking through this, be thinking of, are there additional uses, using this table as a reference that we would want to see prohibited or conditionally allowed in these different zones? And the P is permitted,
Yes.
not prohibited. The P on the current table means it's
Surprising.
primarily permitted, meaning they can just come through and receive approval to do any of those different proposed uses under our current code.
It's all such little teeny font.
Yes. Yeah, it does better on a screen where you can blow it
Yeah,
up.
on the
Yeah.
BMC online.
Yes.
I need arms.
Yes, yes.
Anything else on this prong? Use table. And I agree that the text version is a lot more user friendly than the table version.
Okay, good.
What's difficult with the table version is we attempt to define every use, but then new uses pop up.
Yeah.
And then they're either not allowed, right, because they're not addressed, or you have staff trying to make administrative decisions of whether or not they could fit into a different category. So I think that having this focused on what do we not want, right? What are we clear that we don't want? And then you could potentially add to that as new uses pop up too, but.
Okay, I guess we're moving on.
Great. Okay.
Residential dimensions.
Yes. Okay, now we're getting to the fun stuff. I mean, it was all fun. There we go. So what you'll see first is your first two urban low density zones, which are R6000 and R8000. We haven't really started touching the 20,000 yet, too extensively. But what we're proposing here is that in your current zoning or in the current code, there's quite a bit of text that describes your dimensional standards. And so, yes, that's the one. Thank you. So yeah, ULD zone updates is what the one you should be referring to now. And so it's got extensive text that mostly, again, defines the dimensional standards. So what we have been working on doing is condensing a lot of that into a single table. In your packet, you'll see that there are two tables. There's one that is the existing zoning, which has a lot of different sort of contingencies based on the type of unit and the use of the unit, whether it's senior low income housing or triplex or et cetera, kind of. So what we're suggesting is kind of a consolidation of those into a slightly smaller table, which you'll find on page 7. But some big things to call out. Planning Commission is interested in reducing the side setback for the R6000 to 5 feet, which is sort of the minimum that would be allowed with fire code. And having, as we mentioned earlier, the 1250 square feet maximum for detached accessory dwelling units and attached dwelling units. And then allowing triplexes but on larger lots. So the way that it's divided up now is really to kind of simplify things a little bit. So it's just single family with 2 ADUs, 6,000 square feet is the minimum lot size. Duplex is also 6,000, so it's 3,000 per unit. Which is and then triplex is 9,000 square feet minimum lot. So it's again, it's just 3,000 for each unit, just to kind of keep that a little bit simpler. And then having the maximum units per lot at 3. Let's see, I'm trying to think other highlights. You'll see on page 8, I just drew up quickly the kind of footprint change between the 2 options for your existing and your proposed. In your existing, you have 35% of the lot for a principal unit, and then 20 or 45% of the lot for total building coverage. We are thinking about kind of shifting that to just having sort of blanket 3,200 square feet as the maximum size, sorry, footprint that a building can have. Because on larger lots, if you're doing it by percent, that building footprint can kind of just be very, very large, even if it is only 35% of the lot. So that's kind of the shift that we're thinking about there. So I'll pause there for any questions or.
So what does that look like for, like you mentioned, so let's, for example, a triplex.
Yeah.
At 3 units, it would need to be a 9,000 square foot lot minimum
Yeah,
in order to build a triplex.
right.
And then of that percentage, if it was, for rough numbers, 50%, they would be 1,500 square foot. That would be the maximum.
Right, sorry. Yeah, so for on a 9,000 square foot lot, if you were following your existing zoning, then 35% of that could be the building footprint of that triplex. As opposed to the proposed, which would cap that triplex at having as having a 3,200 square foot footprint. Which would be a third of your lot, roughly.
Right.
So it would be a little bit lower for a triplex.
Okay.
Questions, comment, go ahead, Mayor.
Oh, and so that it ostensibly is for storm retention, is that the whole lot coverage? That seems to be the driver.
Yeah, the driver for lot coverage is, I mean, some of it is just your aesthetic preferences, but some of it is for stormwater management for sure. We have been talking, and you'll see also reflected in the proposed that Planning Commission is interested in moving the impervious surface coverage up from, I believe it was 45% previously to 55%. Really, just again to give a little bit more allowance for ADUs and make a little bit more of the lot buildable. But we've kind of been in conversations a little bit with Chris about whether that would be okay from kind of a water perspective. And you know, there are also requirements for on-site water management that don't go away just because your impervious surface coverage changes.
Yeah.
So.
I know there's a lot of calculations that go into so much roof area. The water obviously runs off the roof faster and gets into the system faster and all of that. There's a lot of calculations, so
Yeah,
I don't pretend to understand it.
Councilmember and
So as far as the size goes, when you're talking about the triplex or duplex, that pretty much would answer Councilmember Arsanto's question on if you can have 3 or if you can have 2.
I'm sorry,
If it's a R6000, then you could only have 2 ADUs,
Right.
correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So so in the R6000 zone, if you have a 9,000 square foot lot, which there are some, there's not that many, then you could have a triplex there.
Okay.
Yeah. But the sort of situation is that because you're required to allow two ADUs on a lot, functionally, people could have a triplex on a 6,000 square foot lot, so long as two of the units were 1,250 or were smaller than 1,250 square feet. So it's a little bit of a
You'd have three small ones or two.
yeah, you'd have three small ones or two small ones and one slightly larger one, or you could have three slightly larger ones.
But then how does that take into account the actual primary residence that's already there?
So in this case, I mean, it would depend on.
You'd have to have 9,000 square foot.
Well, I mean,
available. No.
No, the DADUs or ADUs, they are in addition to, so they can, you're allowed to have 2 units in addition to your primary residence, so whatever is currently on site. If you wanted to build a triplex, a new triplex, then you need to have a minimum of 9,000 square feet. But for 2 ADUs, if you can meet the dimensional standards as proposed with the side yard setbacks, the impervious surface maximum, the building coverage maximum, you can put 2 additional ADUs on any lot where you currently have a single primary residence, as long as you can meet the other dimensional standards.
So if you had a single family residence that was 3-story, so the footprint wasn't all that big.
You have to meet the height requirement, so the height is 30 feet. But yes,
but yeah, okay,
Yes,
so
okay.
yes, if you have a.
you dug underground, you got a
It's
base.
for very
A daylight base.
So
Yeah.
You have very short people, yeah.
Yeah.
I could do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
so as long as you're meeting all of your dimensional standards, anyone is allowed to have up to 3 dwelling units per parcel. 1 primary residence and 2 ADUs, DADUs, or 3 smaller units. But again, they have to meet the dimensional standards, or to build a triplex, you have to have 9,000 square feet.
Okay.
But you could turn your single family home into a triplex by putting on two more entrances and or additions and
As long as you're meeting the dimensional standards.
lots of hoops to jump through, but it
I don't wanna
can,
do
it can
that.
be.
It sounds too hard.
Anything else on this prong of our discussion?
I guess the one other thing I wanted to call attention to is there are a couple of highlighted text pieces. So one is you have a regulation that says that for duplexes, they need to, if it's on a corner lot, then the 2 units need to be facing 2 different directions. The respective streets. And our suggestion is that it's a little bit prohibitive for development, it's more expensive. And so unless you really have a strong preference for the sort of aesthetic quality of that type of building, then it may be better to get rid of it.
Page 2 has an illustration on there. So say you had intersection of Main and A, well. Just say it's Main and A. With the 2 faces, one of the entrances would be on Main, the other would be on A. Versus the one on the right, both would be on Main Street.
So to have 2 different addresses then?
Yeah.
That seems dumb.
Different street, yeah.
It also kind of makes it really difficult to have a stacked duplex, which is the second one.
Then if it's a 4-way stop or something, then you're trying to get all, I don't know, yeah.
I don't mind them both
Heartburn.
facing the same way.
Okay, cheers. That's one thing we can strike. Great. We talked a little bit about, oh, and then the second piece is, you currently have a regulation that requires the second floor to be 10% smaller than the first story. And so the question is just whether you want to retain that as well. It also makes it a little bit more expensive to develop it's just a question kind of aesthetics.
That makes no sense to me. When you're going, we have a two-story house. To have something 10% more is gonna be structurally different.
Well, no, I
Ten
think,
percent less. It gets-
10% less,
yeah,
10%
yeah,
less rather.
Yeah,
We still have to be structurally different.
I think it's to get rid of the box, have modulation, I think is the goal, is that right?
that's the goal is to have
Just
modulation,
so it doesn't, it's just not box.
but there are other ways to achieve modulation. And I threw two examples in there on page, on page 3, just showing two examples of what I think are pretty attractive homes that would fail this particular test. So.
Yeah.
Or video.
What page is the language on that's being changed?
The language is on page 2.
Bottom of A,
Yeah, exactly. The
Oh.
bottom of,
two small eyes, A.
yeah, between 2 and 3.
Gotcha. And the proposal is to do away with that.
Just, yeah.
Okay,
To
got it.
do away
Okay,
with that.
yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm good at that.
just for reference, what we're proposing is that we retain only the text that is highlighted right now.
Oh, okay.
And the rest is then encapsulated in the dimensional standards table. So the intent again is really to condense all of this and make it a lot more user friendly.
Works for me.
Anything else on that?
Okay, great. Moving directly onto R8000. Which begins.
Quickly back to the R6000, 5-foot side yard.
Oh, thank you,
setback.
Courtney, yes.
You did mention it, but I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that the second to take that in. So that is for fire code, minimum of 10 feet between buildings.
Currently 8 feet.
Yep, we've discussed that in the past and it seemed like there was a desire to keep it the larger setback. Staff is recommending that we go with the 5-foot in these zones, in the R6000 zone. Wanted to make sure that council weighed in and understood the recommendation.
We have Scogans on board.
Yep.
Hey, repeat the last one, please.
Shrinking the side yard setback from 8 feet to 5 feet.
No.
One no.
But the fire chief said that's okay?
Yes.
I mean, that's literally means I could like put my feet like this and have my head, you know, like a 45-degree angle in between two houses.
Exactly.
That's
I know. Well, long, so,
5 on each side makes 10s.
yeah.
The fence, you're definitely in the fence, so.
Yeah. But the hope is that, yeah, it's, it's really, side yards are mostly just used for egress. So then you can put more of your usable green space in one place. So on the side of your building.
Beehives.
Perhaps beehives. Okay, let's see. So moving on to R8000. This is really similar, but I think the thing that we really wanted to focus on a little bit was the frontage width. Because right now you have a pretty wide frontage width of 75 feet. And so our proposal is to take that down to 60 feet. And I think the diagram on page 15 is pretty helpful for kind of showing the difference there. What happens with your 75-foot frontage is that you get a pretty wide but shallow buildings. And so our recommendation is just to make a slightly narrower, longer building.
So would that be a 60-foot minimum lot width?
Yeah,
Okay,
right, frontage width, yeah.
I know there's places,
Or fair enough.
Kent, Auburn, they have like, they're down to 35 and 40, they're getting super skinny.
Yeah.
Comments, questions on that problem?
And we still have a variance process if you want to make something extra narrow.
Mhm.
And I know we have on Cedar Street, we have those three little super narrow, just the front door of the garage is like in the alley, and so they were able to sneak three in there.
Exactly. Marianne should have her hand up at all. Yep. Okay, we can move on.
All right. Make quick work of that. All right, moving to high density residential. Just pull that up. So this is where you may have a little bit more of the growing pains. We have kind of tentatively said that or not even really tentatively, at this point, I think it's fairly fixed that the HDR low zone would allow up to 20 dwelling units per acre, which is currently allowed in HDR for certain building types, and then 30 as for base density for HDR high, and then up to 40 for affordable housing. So given those changes, there are some pretty significant lot constraints, particularly with the amount of housing that you currently, parking that you currently require. So the UHD workshop sheet is really just an attempt to kind of start thinking through some of the ways that we can maybe start to deal with that shift in scale. I think reviewing your multifamily or design guidelines, what is pretty clear is that it's kind of taking your single family and kind of copying and pasting it to create multifamily. And I think there may be some other strategies that we can use to make multifamily fit a little bit better within Buckley. So actually, I think maybe before we talk about this too much more, I might shift us. I put together sort of a visual preference survey for you all to review. And I want to just kind of go through that to look at, in that survey, I attempted to kind of draw a number of examples of middle housing and with different parking options primarily and different setback requirements in order for us to kind of think through, like, would we want to require alleys for high density residential zones? Where would we want the parking to be? Would we prefer aggregate parking? So parking that's all kind of in one place behind the units as opposed to on the front of facades. So yeah, if you'd be willing to look through that for like 5 or 10 minutes and just kind of mark up what you like or dislike about different examples. That would be really helpful. And then maybe we can just discuss what we think is effective.
So we're supposed to use your example to say.
Yeah, just,
you feel.
it's basically, yeah, just to kind of rate, I separated it out by different sort of qualities of the building, because I think a lot of the time we have strong reactions to say the like siding, and that there are certain things that we can regulate more than other things, like we can't regulate the materials to the same degree as we can say where something is on the site. And so just to be able to kind of pull apart that a little bit is what this is.
We have the ability to require on-property parking for those lots that.
So there is some state legislation around having, and I need to get a better handle on exactly what the minimum is for affordable housing. There's something that was passed very recently that seems to indicate that maybe you can't have mandated off-street parking for some affordable units. So I'm gonna dig deeper into that, but yes, you can require parking.
I know in Seattle, bad example, but they just, well, they'll figure it out, and that doesn't ever work very well. For those people, sure, some people are gonna bike or use mass transit or whatever, but having and of course, then visitors come to visit, they bring a car or maybe a bicycle, but. So yeah, on property is, especially
It's
for
perfect.
rural.
Yeah, no, and it makes complete sense. Currently, I will say your multifamily parking requirements are currently higher than they are for your single family. You have a 2.2 stall requirement, so it's 2 per unit plus guest parking lot for every 5 units, so 2.2. So it's high, it's really quite high. And then when you, and you'll kind of see if you return to your HDR packet, the last page is looking at exactly how much of the lot that would take up at different densities. And it gets to be really, really high. And so, yeah, I think the question is kind of what is a comfortable minimum that would allow you to, it's probably a little bit more on street parking, but keep most cars off the street, and then allow these buildings to be built, basically.
It's also a way, I would assume, that it can be encouraged to not build X, Y, or Z by having a larger, I don't know, that's what.
A larger, yeah, that's true. And I think, so I think if to kind of align our code with what we've said that we're going to do, in terms of allowing 40 dwelling units per acre at the maximum for affordable housing, then we need to step back a little bit on the parking requirement.
It was very popular in Seattle, and I think it still is today. They would tear down a house on a small lot, let's say 4,000 square foot lot, and they would build a fourplex. And the garage was in the bottom floor. I mean, they could just squeeze them in there, and then it was 2 stories above, and they were very tiny, but they would go through the middle. And I mean, you'd have to have a Mini Cooper to get into these little garages, but they worked for them.
Yeah.
Comments, questions?
A lot of agencies are moving in the direction of having a scaled level of parking. So for a studio, for example, you'd only require 1 stall per unit versus the flat that we have right now of 2.2. So just taking that approach would probably help ease some of the tension, I guess, between our code and what we've said that we were going to do in terms of allowing for density, as well as I think that the new law that Sarah is referencing is more impacted for areas and cities that have access to mass transit, and we don't. So we do have more flexibility, I believe, unless things just changed, to continue to require on-site parking because there aren't other options. Yeah, like there are elsewhere in the region.
Yeah, it feels like something that is constantly evolving. Changing every year.
Target keeps moving.
Yeah.
Other questions and comments on this prong?
So looking at the photos, is there any that you particularly like or do not like? I feel like I asked that question and I could anticipate some of the answers, some of the responses. And then to Sarah's point, if there are some that you do not care for, would you share exactly what it is about that specific one that you're not liking? Is it the height of the building? Is it the patio, the setback? Because Sarah's next step is going to be taking our design regulations, which are currently separate from our code, and creating language to codify the regulations so that all of our rules and standards are found in one place. And as she moves through that, it will be helpful to have as much direction from this group as possible so that she can work on that and take something that we're pretty confident in to Planning Commission, which is also currently reviewing all this. Yeah. This, yeah.
I will just say, and obviously council chime in, it gets not as tasteful the further you could go into the first three are look like Buckley, the rest do not. The cottage, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the blue apartment, and actually, those are really the ones that I'm most interested in having your feedback on in a way, are the apartments, because that's kind of your max build out. And so the difference between those two are they both have, they're parking behind. But one of them is has no setback from the street. Yeah, thank you.
16 and 18.
16 and 18, yeah. So one has a setback, the other one is directly on the street. Currently you have a pretty big setback for high density residential. And so I think one of the things that you can also think about is where you want your aggregated green space to be, because the other requirement in your multifamily housing design guidelines is a pretty significant amount of green space that is aggregated. And so the more that you have in setbacks, the less you have in aggregate green space. So that is something that I would love to get your feedback on, is just whether the zero lot line or a smaller setback feels appropriate so that you can create more green space elsewhere on the property. Or they have more flexibility about where that green space is.
So the one on page 16, that one is a 0 setback.
Yeah, so that's zero setback. They've made it a little bit nicer by adding planting, like some planting.
45 in the corner off, but
Yeah, and creating that cornice, chamfered edge.
And then they likely have an open space area that isn't
Mhm.
depicted here elsewhere on the lot.
And I'm sorry that none of these have site plans because I couldn't find them, but. And then the example for the cottage housing, which is on page 20, which I think is a really nice example, but they also, the way that they're front loaded, but they have all of their parking in one place in barns on the side of the property so that it's all kind of in one place and that's all buffered off. So it's, not super visible. And then they have this, what I think is a really beautiful green space in the middle of their units. That's community space. So that's, it's just kind of this question. I think the biggest question that I have for you all, just reviewing these, is where you want your parking to be. And your open space.
What's the difference between 14 and the picture on 14 and the picture on 20? They both kind of have the courtyard and
14.
they're both
let's see.
ultra high density. Is that the?
Oh, let's see, 14 is, oh, yeah, okay, so, your courtyard apartment is attached, your, cottage housing
separate.
is
Separate.
detached, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So cottage apartments tend to be a little denser, this could be more than one story, this is obviously really,
Dated.
low and a bit dated. But is really designed to create kind of a central green with like eyes on the street, kind of to create kind of a friendly place for kids to hang out, etc.
I guess because there's so many moving parts to this, I'll
Yeah.
just start with 15 would be the least desirable,
Okay.
then 18
Can I ask, sorry, so 15
is.
being that cottage, can I ask what, 16, sorry.
Page six, the picture on page 16.
Is it,
Sorry, did I say it's 15? Yeah, 16 and 18,
okay, can
kind
I?
of working it back.
Okay. Can you, just based on the different things, is it like, can you be a little specific about like what aspects of those buildings?
Well, lack
Which
of
challenging.
even just green space in the front, which in theory it's in the back. And I think it's a little hard because they're all through, well, those two examples are both 3-story, which we don't have enough, we have a height restriction, so it doesn't quite fit into our.
You will
You could
need
achieve, you could achieve
to
3
allow
stories of
3
that height.
stories. Yeah, it's, you wouldn't be able to have, you'd have a little bit of a reduced, size for your, or number of units on your 3rd story because of the roof.
And the roof line would
yeah.
be real
Yeah.
shallow.
Yeah.
To get, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be more like a, daylit attic type, vaulted ceiling type situation. But to meet your density requirements, it's really, really hard without allowing 3 stories. Yeah.
And with our height restrictions,
Yeah.
it is possible that somebody
Yeah.
could come forward with a.
Yeah. And I think we're okay with keeping it as hard as possible to make it 3 stories. I mean, it's doable. We know we
Yeah,
can do
it's
it.
doable.
I think we're.
We don't need to be overachievers.
Right, no,
Yeah.
exactly. What he said.
Okay. So
Green space in the front's preferred.
green space on the front is preferred. Okay, great.
And ostensibly the green space being on the front edge of the whatever street.
Sure.
Yeah. Which I guess encourages people to be in their front yard versus if it's asphalt in the back for parking.
Yeah.
Some folks want more privacy in the back. I guess that's.
Yeah, and I mean, both of these examples are just kind of straight on. There are also more like courtyard apartments that are more similar to the brick example that could be higher, but would have their green space in the center, more like the cottage court. And those, I mean, I think personally, I feel like those are really a lot more comfortable as like somebody using that space.
Yep.
Then
Kind of contains the little ones if you have dogs. Or
yeah,
cats or-
totally. And you have, neighbors who can keep track of everyone and stuff.
It's a village. Shit.
So, but, okay, but if that was the case, the C shape would hopefully be facing the front rather than the back.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And everybody chime in. That's just my 2 cents so we can head down give her some direction
And
here.
the line.
Yeah, much appreciated.
I like cottage court. That's.
They're pretty cute. Yeah, I think they're a really nice type for senior
Mhm.
housing as well, because they're
Hmm.
pretty accessible. Yeah. They're a little bit lower density, typically they're around 15 to 20 dwelling units per acre. So that would fit really nicely in your low density. I mean, it would fit nicely in both, but
I think my least favorite as far as the way it looks, the type of design would be on page 18.
okay.
Is that because of the building or because of the green space in the front?
It's the building.
Okay.
Okay.
Look,
I like
Look at-
the green space in the front is not too bad.
versus, yeah, 16 to 18 are both.
Yeah, I mean, it's still small, but it's better than having them right on the sidewalk.
Okay, got it. And then I am really curious, kind of going back to the sort of the earlier examples, like page 12. Sorry, I've got 4 fourplexes. One is front loaded, which is one that's built in Buckley, which is the first example on page 8, which is kind of how your code is currently written. One is on 10, which is a fourplex that's stacked. So, you'll see that there are 4 little doors on the front of the facade. In your case, obviously you'd want off-street parking that could either wrap around behind or be alley loaded. So there's that example, and then the final example is on page 12, which is side by side but alley loaded. So it moves the garage door to the back of the unit.
I like the aesthetics of, you said the garage doors in the back now.
Yeah, so it could either be a combined garage at the back where each unit has a combined, or it could be just
Mm, yeah.
a garage attached to the back of each, yeah, or parking spaces, or a parking space, or a park, yeah, exactly, sorry, yeah. Yeah.
We got the alley loaded, like in Buckley, they pick the garbage up in the alley, so what's that? What would that do with like trying to park in the back and the garbage service, and seems like it'd be a cluster.
So
Zero lot.
Chris is nodding yes, it's a cluster, but
Garbage could still be picked up out front, I would think.
Well, I'm just asking. about
Yeah, I
against it, I'm
mean-
just curious.
and like in your R6000, most of your like your historic city, its historic grid is alley loaded, and so you do have people entering their properties on the back of the lot. And so it's kind of a, like, if you compare those aesthetics between your R6000 and your R8000, those are kind of the differences here.
Is there a component to this? I know this has been a concern. I haven't seen it here on the utility side for we're gonna have separate water meters, or we're not gonna have separate water meters, or is that's not really.
That's not part of the design standards necessarily, but that has been discussed pertaining to especially the ADUs.
Yep.
If I remember that, the last conversation is we're gonna leave some flexibility.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or it'll be up to the discretion of the engineer and public works director.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's gonna be problematic going forward, so.
Especially as units can be condominiumized.
Yeah, and the owner doesn't have to live there on any of the 3
Yeah.
triplex or so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so any other thoughts on the alley loading versus, or yeah, where parking, where green space, especially for your lower density as well, because I mean, I think it's probably worth discussing that too, just because that's what's being built in Buckley and what's likely to be built, continue to be built. So you have some influence over that form. So, yeah.
Can we require that the alley be wider? Is that anything that we could?
Yeah, I mean, not for existing alleys, but for new
Right.
subdivisions, yeah.
Just so that garbage trucks or,
The biggest problem with the existing alleys in town is none of them are straight. They're just not. I mean, we have garages in the alley, we have.
Yeah, people have encroached
Right.
in, and so now the alley does this.
So I'm making a note, make sure they're straight.
straight wider alley.
Straight and wider, thank you. Straight, wider.
Say straight.
But the preference would be to have parking in the back
Rear.
via an
In the
alley.
rear.
Okay.
Where would the utilities be then? Would they be in the front street, not the back?
We don't have, well, we have no water in alleys right now, and most of our sewer, there's old sewer in the alleys that have been converted to storm.
This would mostly be newer
A
development.
newer stuff. Opposed to that,
Well, if you had the, you know, I mean, they're trying to work on them
yeah.
in that little alleyway. Where everybody's part, big inconvenience if you have to
It's
do
good
it.
to
And on the width, I don't know if you could get a water main and a sewer main down
Yeah,
Probably not.
a 20-foot alley.
and utilities are always best in between the curbs, if
Right.
there are curbs, and.
The other benefit, I think, of doing it as alley loaded is that then you do have more on-street parking because you have fewer curb cuts. So that makes it a lot more viable. If you do have people visiting, et cetera, or if we need to change our minimums. Or,
We avoid water meters being in the approaches as well. With the water meter being out front.
right, yeah,
I like the duplex on page 6.
let's see.
That looks like a Buckley type.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you don't want any of it, so.
We like 0.
I like that one.
Yeah.
You did a nice job on your photos.
Thank you.
Examples.
We've been working on building a bigger collection. There's not a lot of middle housing in Washington still, so it's kind of hard to find. But that might change. Okay, great. This is really helpful. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I think that's all of my many agenda items.
Do you want our tests?
Uh,
I think you give us homework every time you come.
I think I do. Well, if you
Don't put your-
if you want to
don't
hold
put
on
your
to
name
it
on
and
it,
if
then
other things
Yeah.
kind of come to you, then you can also email me. Yeah.
Moving on to item C, council member comments. Anybody have any comments? Councilmember Green.
Just want to note, this has been a really productive study session and, you know, the format, love the collaboration.
Perfect. Anybody else? Councilmember Anderson. Don't hear her, don't see her.
I'll just,
Mr. Mayor.
we did have a meeting, I guess, today with WashDOT in King County and Pierce County, and there were 0 updates, so.
Yes, I saw that from a specific council member from Enumclaw again today, putting out information that
No new news.
he probably shouldn't be putting out.
My son showed me. Pages of comment.
Of text, yeah, a lot of people want to be the first one with the information, whether it's accurate or not, so that's unfortunate.
Anything else? Okay, next Tuesday is our regularly scheduled council meeting, so it is 7:40 PM Pacific Daylight Time, and this will conclude the Buckley City Council Study Session.